Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures. Today, we are asking a big question. As AI takes over targeting, creative work, and campaign execution, what will still belong to us as marketers? We'll talk about how AI is changing our jobs, what will make brands stand out in the future, and what skills will need to stay relevant. But before we get into today's conversation, let's hear about our participants. Sam, maybe would you like to start? Would you like to give a sentence on yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me today. My name is Sam Nohava, and I lead growth marketing at Coupa within the Americas regions. And Coupa is the leading AI provider of total spend management solutions. So simply put, we help companies manage all of their spending and trading information more efficiently.
Thank you so much, Sam. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Joaquin. My name is Debbie Gaikwad, and I work in the marketing sphere for S&P Global, specifically for market intelligence, which kind of comprises all of the data solution sets for various company types. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. Welcome. Alejandra, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Joaquin, for inviting me for this session. I am Alejandra. I'm the marketing manager for cloud business at Ingram Micro for the UK market.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Harvey, welcome.
Yes, Joaquin, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm Harvey Raniola. I'm the head of marketing at Quid. Been here for about 6 years, going on 7 years now. And for folks who are not familiar with us, we are an AI native consumer and market intelligence platform, and really excited to be part of this discussion today.
Okay, well, thank you so much for those great introductions. Let's kick off with the main question, okay? Let's start with how AI is already showing up in your work. How has AI changed your job in the past few years? Try to give one or two simple examples that people can easily relate to. I don't know, how you create content, your campaigns. Please tell me how your job is changing.
I could jump in here. Yeah, I feel like we've been fortunate just to be in the AI space and having been there for the last 20 years as a company. And so I would say that what's changed recently, obviously, with the advent of generative AI, from a productivity perspective and a speed perspective, in terms of us being able to turn things around and generate new content, it's significantly easier. Obviously, the way that we want to look at things is that it's assisted by AI as opposed to completely created by AI. So we do believe that it's important for us to be able to include inputs that are of value and that are substantive that we could actually build content around. And thankfully, we're able to benefit from that from our own products, where we could plug in our own analyses and to be able to understand the right jargon that we need to use for our materials, the right channels to be able to go after. And so, I would say with a lot of the developments over the last couple of years, it's enhanced a lot of the inherent productivity that we're able to gain as a result of just being part of an AI company. Lots of exciting stuff.
Great. Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Harvey, I think that AI within the past, since the beginning of this year has been transformative for me as a marketing manager in the sense of kind of adding to my knowledge base. I think AI has been transformative in my role as a marketing manager. I think that mainly for me, not having, specialized in financial services or within the financial market, AI really helps to kind of supplement my knowledge of the industry. So whether it's the private markets or credit risk analyses as a whole, or, what investment banks or investment management firms might want from us from a data perspective or from a solutions perspective, how we can complement them and enhance their kind of experience with us, it's really kind of added to my knowledge base. So I could just go to AI quickly and, kind of dump some articles, that I found on Google or even within our internal repository to quickly summarize and kind of break down the target audiences and, the benefits versus the cons, just as a high level.
I wouldn't even say that it's been within the last 2 years, but really the last 6 months. It's totally changed the game. And I'm blessed to now, being with Coupa for the last 6 months, work for a really AI forward company who's given us some of the tools we need to use AI in a safe and effective way, making it more systematic as opposed to ad hoc. And in the last, I'd say 3, we've increased our adoption of AI from 50% in marketing up to 90%, which we're really proud of. But with that comes the need to set some guardrails around, again, safe and effective use of AI. Outside of your typical strategy and copy editing, we're starting to use AI for personalization at scale, really helping to reinvent the buyer's journey and be more timely and relevant.
Yes, actually, I agree with all of you creating content. For example, between 1 or 2 years ago, it was really a really hard time because you have to get information from different resources to read long texts and things like that. That is time consuming for you, and you don't have enough time to create your own content. Now with AI platforms, it helps you to create and optimize your process in a really speed up way, drafting marketing copy, emails, socials, instead of starting from scratch. So basically, I think that we can generate a strong first draft with AI, and then we can redefine it with a tone that it's more personalized and human that we want to. So yeah.
I would love to build on that. And because if AI can already do most of what marketers and agencies used to do, what will make the difference between good and great marketing in the future? Is it creativity? Is it that human insight that you mentioned, Alejandra, or is it strategy?
Can I respond to what Alejandro was mentioning earlier? Because it is a great point, right? That AI isn't new. It's something that it's so pervasive that we don't even realize that it's helping us. It's been helping us to be able to do our jobs for the last couple of years, for several years now, right? And really the change over the last 2 years or so has been around the generative and the agentic aspect of it, where the AI has agency to produce and create new things, which is something that in the past, when we thought about AI, a lot of it was tied more to automation and improving efficiency in that aspect. And so it really is interesting how much has changed, and it's exponential too. It's part of what's most surprising about it. I think a lot of this too is because people are trying out new things, and obviously they're influencing the way that models are working. But to think that a year ago, when we were thinking about generative AI videos and people making full-fledged commercials that now you're seeing in major sporting events or, during commercial breaks, that all started a year ago with Will Smith eating spaghetti. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that video, but it was horrible and nightmare inducing, right? And now we have things that are so close to being realistic. Obviously for the folks who are familiar with how AI typically looks, there are certain tells, but we're not too far away from Will Smith eating spaghetti. I don't think it'll take us that much longer to get to a point where what's being created by AI is indiscernible from reality, which is both exciting as well as scary for marketers, especially for folks who are in more creative roles that are responsible for producing videos, for producing other content, music, even. There's so much of the creative industries that are potentially impacted by this, but I don't want to jump ahead too far just in terms of the questions that we plan on discussing later on, but I wanted to address that shift in the way that people have perceived AI, and that's been around for so long. It's just there have been so many changes, and they've essentially rebranded to where AI is much more synonymous with generative AI as opposed to automation as it has been, the last couple of decades.
Yeah, and then if everyone has access to this, what happened next? What happened if everyone has access to this amazing technology? You are a prompt of distance to creating a Will Smith eating spaghetti versus in the past hiring a creative team and everything. What happened next?
In terms of just, I think, going back to like what Harvey said, and even Alejandra, what she said, I think right now, I think what differentiates AI from humans and why humans are still an integral piece of what's going on, at least from a marketing sphere, is, each individual has their own kind of objectives in mind when it comes to the tone, and keeping the brand at heart for each of their individual respective companies. I think if you have an internal based AI system, of course, they might have some parameters in place already to capture that. But if you're using something open source, then they're definitely not going to kind of take into consideration what, your respective brand wants or what your stakeholders want or what your customers and clients are used to seeing. So I think it's still very important for the human marketer or, whatever capacity they're using that AI to look at what's being produced and ensure that it's something that you can take to market. You don't want to have a faux pas where it's something like Will Smith eating spaghetti and it looks horrible, But I think where it kind of gets a little muddy is where, AI is advancing. It's not new, but it's advancing at an exponential rate. Now, what happens when it can start thinking for itself and applying, that human touch to its language, adapting very quickly? Then what do we do? So I think that's a question that's kept me up at night, just to be honest.
Yeah, completely agree. I think those are great points. And as all of these potential paths to efficiency and gains for our organization through AI come about, as that level of automation expands, back to our earlier point, brand really is what I believe keeps that level of relevance and authenticity, what we can't get wrong as a part of the equation, the prompts, whatever tool or inputs we're providing AI. The brand needs to be at the heart of it, as does storytelling. Otherwise, all of our marketing programs will look the same and we won't resonate with our audiences or be able to really put in place that level of hyper personalization that I think we're all being asked to deliver on a daily basis with the same resources and the same budget.
Yeah, on my, I think the same. Like I think it's great how all of us as marketeers have the same point of view. Like we are facing across the globe because we are in different time zones and we are working with different cultures. How AI it's been so strong during the past days, even though from my experience I have seen so far that AI it's going to be more and more attractive in the upcoming years. And it's not just for marketeers, it's also for everyone. The only thing that we need to take into account that as marketeers is that AI platforms is great for us because it's a tool that is going to support us to have less time consuming on doing things that we can do it earlier in a fast and speed way. But also we have to realize that at this point, AI extracts some algorithms and also some information from internet that probably is not 100% accurate. So you have to be human and think about and realize that all the copy and the everything that you are looking on AI platforms is not 100% what you want to. So it's very, very important for us as humans to realize and to think about what are the things that we can extract from those AI platforms rather just that copy and paste. So I think that's one of the key points that I think in the future probably we need to keep human beings being part of AI and not just like that. Also our customers don't realize that we're having just copy and pasting things that at the end of the day is not what we want to as marketeers.
I think there are a couple of things that came up that I wanted to respond to, and I feel bad because I feel like I'm talking so much here, but with regard to general AI models versus those that are tailor-made for specific outcomes, use cases, industries, I think it makes sense to think about how we make the distinction between the two and how we utilize AI in that sense, right? Admittedly, small commercial here, that's kind of what we focus on. And Quid is providing folks with tailored and bespoke models, unlike what you get out of ChatGPT. So just getting that stuff out of the way. It does, and this is something that Sam touched on as well. AI levels a playing field for marketers and for other folks within our companies as well. It's for folks who are very limited in resources. In the past, if we had budget constraints and we had to cut things like content or advertising creative and having an agency working on that stuff for us, now it may not be as high quality just yet, but we could turn to AI to do that. And so even if we don't have a, $100 million budget that includes being able to include creative as part of that budget, now we could leverage AI to be able to produce things that are close to the quality that we would get from an agency. So, I mean, going back to what we were discussing earlier about how creatives in the marketing space, how they're likely to be the earliest folks to be impacted by how quickly AI is developing. Depending on where you sit in marketing, it's both a good thing and a bad thing in terms of how things are quickly evolving. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much unknown here. There's a lot to be excited about, but I also agree there's also a lot to be somewhat concerned and worried about that would keep us up at night.
And what's the role of brands in this context? If AI is the main way people discover and interact with brands, what will brand mean in 2030?
I think brand is the anchor of authenticity. It is the glue to ensure a unified experience and an easy way of understanding the value that you provide, the way you've impacted and supported other customers. It's really this brand becomes the seamless experience, and it does become the modern brand promise. It's essentially the guardrail against all of that generic automation and level of disbelief or lack of reality around what models are pushing out. It is authenticity. It's what it's all about.
I think brand is your name, right? So if you go into the market, what differentiates you from your competitors? What are your clients saying about you? And I think AI is a large piece of that, right? Because if you're just using AI to basically be your holy grail, this is what we're doing for marketing. Plug some prompts in, it comes out with a marketing plan and it comes out with some tactics for you and it segments the audience. That's wonderful. But if you don't do anything to keep up with the reputation of your brand and always keep at the forefront, how is this differentiating us if all of our competitors are also using AI, then, you're just going to be lost. If you have to use AI. AI isn't optional anymore. It's essential to kind of just stay ahead of the game or at least keep on par. But you have to look at what your brand means to your stakeholders within the past X amount of years that it's been in the market, right? So if you're a well-established company or if you're newer to the game, it doesn't matter. You have to keep that reputation alive. And I think that's where the human touch comes in. You have to keep your ear to the street. You have to constantly understand what your clients are saying and what your stakeholders are saying. And I think that's where brand ties in with the human touch for the brand ties in with the AI efficiency, because, you're not going to have AI models as of right now talking to people, establishing those connections and keeping that reputation alive. AI is just making your job at this moment a little bit easier based on, what prompts you're using and what you're using it for. But you need to kind of keep your reputation at the forefront of what your brand means for you. And I think with AI now coming in through the pike at a higher rate, you have to be even more careful to understand, exactly what it's saying, what you're putting out in the market. So for me, brand is the human touch. And in 2030, that is what's going to differentiate you from your competitors that are using stock AI language.
More or less than today? I think that's a question, because today brand is still super important, right? It's not something new. What do you think it will be in 5 years? Will be more or less important than it is today?
More just to kind of, because if everyone is used to everything being AI, I think what your brand means and what you represent is going to be even more important in 5 years. And what you can do for the people. And it's not just, hey, for instance, I have a client who has a problem or I need to get this out in the market. I'm just going to plug this into AI and get this out. I think in 5 years, it's going to be very important for folks in the market to know that you still believe in what your brand is pushing out and that you're really still here for the people that you want to serve.
Yeah, and these are all open questions. Then, if we interact with brands all through AI, let's say LLMs, because that's maybe the way that people relate AI today. And if we are interacting with brands through LLMs, how do you think brands can do branding in the future if almost the only way that we are interacting with brands today is through LLMs?
Just touching on something that both Sam and Debbie talked about with regard to brand and how companies need to be able to demonstrate their value and to emphasize how they're able to help out who it is that they're working to serve, right? It at the end of the day, marketing in general is about being able to convey the value that you're able to provide for your customers. And even when you think about SEO, what helps you to be able to not be impacted by algorithm changes is providing good content, or writing up good content that is actually valuable and are things that people want to search for. And we think about AI, we should be thinking about it the same way, right? We shouldn't be thinking about how to game the way that it currently works. If we focus on value, if we focus on providing folks with something that's useful and we try to do so upfront, then long term, I think it'll be helpful in training up the algorithms. And not only that, but as a whole, brand shouldn't just be purely reliant on marketing in terms of execution. I do think it's something that's organizational, and that'll help us out in the long run, right? If everyone in your organization is focused on delivering value, then you're going to see positive customer reviews online and testimonials about your services and the value that you're providing for your customers. And ultimately, when AI is curating and evaluating different solutions, when people are asking questions of them, when they respond back, they're going to find those testimonials and those reviews that are painting you in a positive light. So a lot of that still goes back to, how am I helping out our customers? How am I adding value and addressing specific pains that you have? And I think that at the core, that's always going to be true, regardless of whether it's SEO or GEO or AEO, whatever it is that we're calling it these days, which I've seen a number of different terms thrown around. It's ultimately always going to come back to that.
Yeah, I love that. It's about value, not volume. And with AI, it's real challenging to not be pulled down the volume hole. Look at all these extra campaigns, events, and ABM programs that I can be running with AI because I can do my job 10 times faster. Well, that's not what's going to win the long game. That's not going to differentiate the brand. It's not going to help the buyer on their journey. And to your point, just help people who are looking to solve big, meaty problems, right? And surely they can get a generic answer through ChatGPT themselves, right? Brand is where it comes to life.
No, I was thinking that basically brand, what we know or what we learn from our past studios or bachelor degree that we studied marketing, when we spoke about branding was more about logos, taglines, messaging. And probably right now at this point of our of 2025 brand, it's not focusing anymore on logos or taglines or things that we had learned from the past. Nowadays, I think that it's what everyone mentioned, the human. So it's more about how people feel when they interact with the different activities and assets that we create to the customer, and also not just focusing on digital marketing. We have a bunch of different channels to share with our customers and have interactions one-on-one in person. I think that's one of the key points that we need to continue, not just focusing on AI. AI, it's a great tool. It's a great platform. It reduces workloads, a faster speed of communication and things that we can do it in a better way. But at the same time, we need to keep the offline marketing that we know from previous years ago.
Yeah, 100%. I think brand is not a logo or an ad. It's what people think about you, and that comes with your purpose, your values, your story, how you act every day. So of course AI can help with that, with either messaging, visuals, or whatever, but the heart of a brand is human. And in person is so important to build that, especially in B2B, right? Where when you risk your career by hiring a new vendor. So it's definitely so important. Okay, great. Let's talk about the skills that B2B marketers will need. Like branding could be definitely one, but what kind of marketer will thrive in 2030?
I think that probably, in my opinion, the skills that we need to have is to balance the creativity with what we use for AI. So, for example, it's good to get the information from AI, but we need to understand how to use AI and how we can guide and interpret what we want to do as messaging, and then personalize and customize in a human being way of exactly what we want to sell. So I think we need to have more creativity, more understanding the way how we want to share or what we want to do with the customer. Because at the end of the day, people are doing AI, our customers are doing AI for different things. Also doing not talking about marketing, is they are doing, I don't know, like I want to give me some options of what type of product for the supermarket can I get in cheaper. I don't know, like you can get any information from ChatGPT and you will know if it's going to be AI or not. So if our customers or every human being knows exactly that anytime that you are watching a video or you are watching some advertisement, it's part of AI, probably our customer is not going to get that engagement and that awareness that we want to, and is going to think about like there's another AI messaging. Let's move forward. So we need to be more focused and more delight. I don't know how to say it, but more intelligence, emotional intelligence with better strategic creativity. I think that's the key combo that we have to do for the future.
And I think I'll reiterate some of the points we talked about earlier, that AI is part of your job as a marketer. If you're not using it, then you're not doing your job. If you are using it, you're not cheating. You're not cutting corners. It is an expectation of the role. And I think going in, especially as a leader, to the conversation or opportunity of AI, knowing that the vast majority of AI pilots fail is important. The need to place wood behind the arrow on those big, meaty, value-oriented use cases that can change the game for your team is where it's at. Investing in a very large number of AI pilots all at the same time is, in my opinion and experience, a recipe for disaster. So what I've done to overcome or try to be more proactive on building that AI roadmap for my team is essentially in marketing outlining the buyer's journey and all the various touch points we have with the buyer across that time, both when they're a known audience or before that when they're unknown, and kind of dissecting and putting a price tag on what it would save us or what it would gain to get that right, and really placing bets in a few strategic areas that are going to help our business and make the buying experience more unified and seamless in nature, and then putting a lot of enablement behind it with my team to make sure, again, back to the point of AI being an expectation of the job, it's all about giving team members the right tools and training so that they move beyond that ad hoc subject line testing, A/B testing type of use into really value add efforts that allow you to do a higher level of work with. Do believe that, again, prioritization of those AI use cases that make sense for your business, where you have friction, where you can add value, paired with that of training is a really critical part of how we need to get it right now so that by the time 2030 comes around, we can be operating at a whole new level.
I think that these are all great points. I think as a marketer, I view AI right now as the how we get things done, how we scale, how we make our jobs more efficient. And as marketers, it's our job to provide the why, So I think that in order to level up, you need to really focus on the metrics and kind of measure your AI activity, kind of see where your productive areas are, where you've gotten benefits, where things need to kind of change, and what, channels you leverage as opposed to not investing in, So I think as a marketer, s- upskilling in that area is huge. And also kind of understanding that all of the different avenues now, like what Sam and Harvey and Alejandra have said, are incorporating AI. It's a part of the job. So how do we use AI now to elevate or enhance our SEO strategy? How do we use AI now to get into the, unpenetrated gap areas or the market areas, So AI can do what we want it to do if we give it the prompts, but it's our job to provide the rationale as to why we want to do it and explore different avenues that are untapped or maybe were tapped and didn't do a great job before that we could explore now through all of the different realms that AI has to offer us.
Just wanted to expand a bit on something that you're saying, Debbie, about identifying areas that are untapped. I do think if we were to think about that in a broader sense, the mindset and the skill sets that folks should focus on is being innovative and operating almost like you're in a startup. So regardless of the size of the company that you're in, you have to make yourself uncomfortable, put yourself in situations where you have to figure out a really difficult problem and that things should be challenging, because I think that's really what that's what helps to forge great marketers and business leaders in general, is trying to solve complex problems, and AI will enable us to be able to do so quickly. That's not to say that it's going to completely solve all of our problems or that it could think for you, right? I think the innovative part of it is still important, because when we think about the way that AI is being leveraged today, it's still important to keep in mind that that old adage about garbage in, garbage out is still true, right? In today's lingo, I guess it's slop in, slop out with regard to AI. So we still should be incredibly mindful and thoughtful and strategic about how we leverage it. But at the same time, for the folks who grew up in the 80s here, the way I was thinking about it was, we don't all have the budget to be like Michael Knight from Knight Rider. So we should all strive to be more like MacGyver and be resourceful in what we have, right? Like it's definitely a mindset shift, right? Because even with folks who have, hundreds of millions of dollars in their budgets, it's easy to be complacent and to employ tactics that are tried and true, that historically may have worked, but within our new context and in the way that people are consuming media and looking for information, it may, having a high budget may be something that actually leads to stagnation in terms of innovation and people just getting really comfortable with what they're familiar with and what they know. And I do think that for us as marketers and as leaders for our teams, we should get comfortable in getting folks somewhat uncomfortable, thinking about how AI is going to challenge the day-to-day job that you're doing in a couple of years from now. If it has a potential to replace what you're doing right now, what else can you do to make sure that that doesn't happen? How do you expand your skill set to ensure that you're not going to be a casualty of AI? And it's not just marketers, right? It's everyone these days. It's something that we ought to think about as a result of all these developments in the AI space.
Yeah, and linking that analogy of having huge budgets and creating better quality content, I agree with you, Harvey. It's not always a strong correlation of that, right? And also we need to understand how the algorithms work today. I'm talking about social. Like, apparently Instagram is copying what TikTok was doing, right? Like everyone can create a viral today. If the content is good, no matter if you have 10 million followers or if you have one follower, your content can go viral because it talks to an audience, and the algorithm is doing that apparently super well. And Instagram is doing the same. And I think it will be the same in the future, like for everyone, right? Everyone can create good content, and then, yeah, maybe you don't need like a huge budget to compete. You need innovation, you need creativity, and all the things that we have been discussing today. Well, thank you so much, Sam, Debbie, Harvey, and Alejandra, for such an insightful chat. I think if there is one takeaway from today, is that AI can handle the how, but people still define the what and why. And brand trust, creativity, again, innovation are still human. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening to B2B Marketing Futures, and see you next time.